Let's see. Hey, this is Don South of Grand Junction, Colorado. I'm here with my daughter, Gabby. Say hi. Um, Today, I want to make things just a little bit different. I want to talk about how me and Gabby met. And it's kind of a long story, and you please feel free to add anything that you want. Gabby.
Do we look the same?
there might be a tad bit of a difference. The reason for that is, Gabby, where are you from?
Guatemala.
Guatemala. What part?
Guatemala City?
Antigua,
which
which is about 30, 45 minutes from Guatemala City. So, yeah, I mean,
kind of close.
So we decided, Kim and I decided that we wanted to adopt, and we weren't able to have kids of our own. My daughter, Stevie, is from a previous marriage, and hi, Stevie, if you ever see this. She lives over in Tennessee. So we decided that we wanted to adopt, and we looked all around. It's like, well, let's adopt in the United States. So we checked it out, and we made the decision that we wanted to adopt a baby for a variety of reasons. And we checked with the United States, and it's a little bit more difficult than you might think. It seems like it'd be pretty simple. There's babies in America that need adoption just like other countries, and it just becomes a little bit complicated. So we chose to seek out adoption internationally, and we checked out with different countries. We checked, China was popular back then, Russia was popular. A friend of mine's who's Indian, he said, why don't you adopt a child from India? We checked with the rules and the laws there, and it was more complicated than the United States. Marshall Islands was popular for a while.
Where's that?
Marshall Islands? Somewhere in the ocean.
Wow.
Honestly, I have no idea. It's a territory of the United States. I know that.
Interesting.
And that became complicated to the point where you can't even adopt kids from Marshall Islands anymore. And so Guatemala was brought up to us, and there was an adoption agency that specialized in Guatemala. So it's like, let's go with Guatemala. So we started the process, and we got through about half of it. It was fingerprints. I mean, it wasn't the fingerprints weren't even like you go to the sheriff's department and you get fingerprinted. There were like 2 places in Louisiana where you could get these special fingerprints. So we got about half of it done. And one Sunday, we had just gotten back from church, and I got a phone call. And the woman from the adoption agency said, hey, we have a video that we want you to see. And I was like, hey, okay. And my wife wasn't even there, so I had to call her and say, hun, get home, because we got to go see this videotape. So we see this videotape, and it's this little baby girl, and she is gorgeous. She's 8 days old, and she's at the doctor's office, and they're giving her first exam. And so we fall madly in love with this child, and it's like, yes, absolutely. We have to have that little girl. And they said, fine, we need all the paperwork done by the end of day tomorrow. Yeah. Otherwise, we're going to be taking this videotape to a couple in Spain that are also looking for a baby. So I just told Gabby this earlier. You could be speaking Spanish.
My gosh.
You could. There could be some advantage. I mean, you'd be living in Europe. Wouldn't that be cool?
That would be pretty cool.
Well, don't think it's too cool.
But Colorado is too beautiful. There's mountains.
Yeah.
I mean, there's probably mountains out there, but it's cooler.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, there are mountains in Spain. All right. So then we got half the paperwork done. That means we have to get the other half of the paperwork done by the end of the next day.
Oh my gosh.
So both of us, my wife and I, Kim, we take the day off, and we take the paperwork and we split up, and we just take off. And it's like we're getting signatures, and we're filling out stuff, and we're going to notaries. And this is a real painful experience. We had to get papers notarized, and then we had to get the notarized papers notarized.
What?
I know.
Why?
I know. That's the way it is.
That's so weird.
So we've collected all this paperwork, and we get to the office that we're going to submit to, to get the final notarization. And they tell us that one of the notaries that we used, their notary expired.
In a day? Not even a day.
No, it's just they went back and looked at the records and said, well, this notary, their notarization abilities have expired.
What?
So your mom is crying at this point.
No.
She's exhausted. I'm exhausted, and we're looking at this person like, well, the good news is what they meant was this the insurance or something that they have to do was expired, but they were still notaries.
Oh.
So the good news is everything was fine.
They still had their job. They knew their job.
Yeah. In Louisiana, if you become a notary, you're a notary for life. So you don't have to worry about that. So anyway, there are miracles in your adoption. I don't know if you know that. That's that's actually miracle number 2. I think the first one was, having that videotape and being able to see you. And then it's like, then some other miracles occur. So the plan was we were actually not going to go to Guatemala to pick you up.
Really?
Yeah, really.
Wow.
It was, they offered a service where they would go down and they would transport you. They would
take me here?
Yeah.
Or where?
They would pick you up. They would pick you up and escort you back to Louisiana.
At the time.
At the time. And so, okay, and that's fine. And I'm not even sure why we chose to do that, but we did.
Gotta go somewhere cool.
Well, I know. So a few weeks before that happened, we get a phone call from the adoption agency again. And she said that she's going in for elective surgery at the time.
Me?
Yeah, no, not you.
I was like, whoa.
No, the adoption agency person is going in for elective surgery at the time that she was supposed to be escorting you.
Wow.
And so she wasn't going to be able to do it, which meant that we would not get you until the next year.
That's crazy.
Okay, so that was not satisfactory. So we scrambled to figure out how we were going to do this, and because it was such short notice, the airline tickets were ridiculously expensive. And again, we're kind of panicking. Well, our friends, family, and coworkers, they showed up, and they got us enough money to.
Is that why there's so many people in the airport when we left and arrived back home?
Yeah.
Wow.
They showed up for you. They wanted this to happen.
Wow.
And so we did. We got on the plane and we flew to Guatemala. We got there at about 10 o'clock at night, something like that. And actually Antigua is farther than I said, because we showed up at the orphanage at midnight to pick you up.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So here we are. We show up at the orphanage. We pick you up. And I mean, she's wide awake and she's smiling. It's like, wow, this is awesome. And they were calling you, I think they were calling you either Marie or Claire.
Oh, God.
And it's like, well, that's not her name. No. That's not the name that we picked. No. And everything that we had was Gabrielle. So we picked you up, and you had a severe case. No, never mind. Anyway, so we picked you up, and we had a relatively sleepless night. You were smiling when we picked you up. You were not smiling during that night. And we had to get up early and get to Guatemala City. So Guatemala City. And they dropped us off at a hotel. And we were waiting for the embassy to open. And that's when and this is just a side note, that's when one of the saddest things I've ever seen, there was a line wrapped around the embassy, if that's what it was. There was a line wrapped around it, and it was Guatemalan people who were seeking visas to go to the United States.
Wow.
Yeah. And I consider that to be sad, simply because that's a lot of people that were seeking it. And hopefully, if that's what they really wanted, I hope that happened for them. And being Americans, we walked to the head of the line because we had an appointment and things had to happen. So the third miracle, I guess, was just us being able to go to Guatemala, and I don't regret it.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it was a whirlwind trip, but it was awesome.
I haven't been back.
No, someday.
Hopefully.
No, it can happen. And when we get there, the fourth miracle occurs. This was 1999, and we were about to experience Y2K.
Oh.
And we found as we were there that day or the next, they were closing the offices until February of 2000.
Holy cow.
As far as I know, you were the last child to leave Guatemala City.
Holy cow. That's wild.
So we could have gotten there and something could have gone wrong, and then we would have been back in February of 2000 to pick you up.
Whoa. That would have been wild. I would have been older. I would have known more stuff back then.
Oh, yeah.
That's crazy.
And while we were sitting there, we heard stories. There was this one family. They had been waiting on an adoption for 2 years. They had identified a baby, and whatever happened with the paperwork, they were still 2 years later trying to adopt that child.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
It's a long time.
Very long time. And so blessings, miracles, whatever you want to put on it.
That's crazy.
The universe was intent upon you coming home with us. Let's put it that way.
Apparently.
And so then we get to the United States. And so that's how you ended up in the United States. And, there were still some miracles. Do you remember the stories that we've told you about what happened with your hearing?
Yeah.
I mean, are you okay talking about that?
Yeah. It's a pretty crazy story.
This was the quietest child we had ever been around. She did not cry. And growing up not growing up, but being in an orphanage, there were 50 kids at that time, and they had staff, and the staff were great. They loved on you kids, but they couldn't hold you all the time. So you would be in your crib, I'm sure, and instead of they didn't use pacifiers. So whatever it was like when you were first there, you learned to kind of self-soothe and just go to sleep. And that's what you did at home.
Yeah.
You'd be laying on the floor with those little gems and and the next thing we know, you're asleep. How'd that happen?
That literally still happens.
Yeah.
Still happens. I'll go anywhere, and honestly, I think my friends think it's weird because they see me fall asleep in places that I shouldn't be sleeping, or I'll just like in the car the other day. This actually happened just the other day. Jeremy and I went to Palisade, and I was so tired from just the day. I don't know, it was 2:00 in the afternoon, and he's all talking about how his friend wanted to go up on the Mount Garfield to hike, and he's all, I don't want to do that. And I remember saying no, and then asleep like this on the car ride on the bumpy road all the way to Palisade, and I didn't wake up once till we got into Palisade, and I woke up and I was like, and Jeremy looks at me like, hey, you were sleeping? And I was like, where am I?
And so this quiet child, who's not quiet anymore, we took her to a movie. We went and saw Green Mile, and it was very loud, and she slept through the whole thing. It's like, wow, we have a great kid. This is awesome. Well, my wife, being a special ed teacher, she wanted to get you completely checked out. I mean, we knew you were healthy. So we took her to, what is it? Not Head Start. Child Find.
Okay.
Yeah, we just wanted to get you all checked out. So I went with her. It was at the hospital where I work. And I stayed there for most of it. And the last couple of things is like, I'm sorry, I got to go. I got to go to work. So I went off to work. And about 30, 45 minutes later, I get this phone call from my wife crying. She's deaf. She can't hear. It's like, how? What? When? And it's profoundly deaf. I mean, you couldn't hear anything. Like, okay, well, we're gonna have to check into this. So we go and we get some more things done. And one of the things that they did it was to scope your ears. Do you remember what the result was?
Earwax.
Earwax. They put the scope in her ear, and there's this thing that looks like this telephone pole sticking out of your eardrum, and it's like, oh, that might be it. So probably for a couple of years, we definitely had to clear the wax. And then there were antibiotics to clear the fluid.
Oh my God!
And your hearing's fine. Your hearing's fine. In the moment, though, that was kind of freakish.
That was pretty wild.
That was kind of scary. I mean, it'd be if you had been deaf, that would have been fine.
Yeah.
We would have taught you sign language. We would have learned sign language. But then, those are some of the things that happen in those first few years. And then eventually, we moved from Louisiana to up here.
Colorado.
Yeah. So that was kind of, I know you don't remember those years completely clearly, but what has your experience been living in this crazy family?
Fun.
Yeah, that's how I'd say it.
It's definitely been fun. I don't know, like in the beginning, I really don't remember anything. I don't know if that's just because I couldn't hear anything or whatever, but I think about the time that I remember the most is when we had mom, like grandpa and grandpa over to Colorado, and they came and visited. And this was my mom's side, so I think that was the last like really, really young memory I had. But growing up in like this family, it's just been fun. We hiked a bunch when I was younger. We like out here, that's probably why I love Colorado so much. And I even now, like, I still try and go on hikes and stuff, and they introduced me to that at a young age. So climbing on rocks like a goat since 2005 or something. I don't know. We have so many memories, so many adventures. They took me so many places: Florida, Arizona. I think like being immersed in what would I call it? America. Yeah. What I call being adopted and coming to Colorado, being immersed in America. So, I think of it a good way because the hardships that people did have in Guatemala, they still have it. They still have poverty. They still have, malnutrition. And, I actually probably would still be, I would be like 4'9", or maybe even smaller, because the average woman there is like 4'8" or something like that. And the average male is like 5 foot. So I'm pretty much like a little bit taller than the average male in Guatemala, mostly probably due to nutrition here in America. And I mean, my family's from the South. Like, could you imagine having all of these cookouts? And I was never hungry. I was always fed, and I can imagine why I am, the size that I am. And I got to play soccer at a young age. That was fun. I'm sure I probably wouldn't have been able to, be in a competitive league in Guatemala, just playing some soccer and practicing with, good players, like that's not a necessity that they have there. And kind of coming here, it opened my eyes. And then now kind of thinking about it when I'm older, like I can see the, like how interesting it would have been growing up in Guatemala compared to here. Like I could be in an arranged marriage or something, or I could be, working, like, and I think about weirdly, like the societal norms that like just Americans have in general, like working and, doing like jobs and like working in fast food or retail or something. But, in Guatemala, they probably are, raking the dirt or, doing some crazy hard labor that nobody's getting paid for.
You want to know the truth?
Yeah.
You're from Antigua. At your age right now, you would be married and you would be raising kids.
I can't even raise myself.
I mean, and that's the reality of the villages in Antigua. The husband, the man, goes to work, and they work at coffee plantations. It's mostly manual labor, and the women, their education ends at about the age of 6. And from the age of 6 on, they're there with mom, both the boy and the girl, while they mostly washing clothes and taking care of the house. It's very much a patriarchal society. And I mean, they might make crafts and things like that, and they cook.
Probably weave.
Yeah.
That'd be kind of cool though to learn. I mean, that's what is interesting to me is like understanding their cultural differences that we have here.
Mm-hmm.
Their beliefs, a lot of that they were never passed down here because they were forgotten. So, the people there who are descended from those their cultural beliefs, some people still practice it, like on reservations and stuff.
Yeah.
But the other part of those people don't.
Yeah.
Which is sad.
Sorry, I laughed because I remembered our when we moved,
the reservation.
The reservation, on our when we moved up to Colorado, we stopped at a reservation, and I've never been more uncomfortable in my life. You were about somewhere between 12 and 18 months old, something like that.
Holy cow.
And the dirty. Not dirty. It's not dirty looks. It's the suspicious looks that we got from the native people. Because, I mean, again, you were very young. Every culture wanted to claim you.
Mm-hmm.
The way that you looked, you were very multicultural. Even the guy that was from India, he thought you were Indian.
People think I'm Philippines.
Yeah. And you just have that look about you, which is pretty awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And, for most cultures, it's like, oh, you adopted a child from India. It's like, no, but thank you. On the reservation, no, completely different. And I get it. I understand it. We were talking earlier, there was a time when Indian children were taken away from their parents and raised by white Europeans. I get it. And, that was never our intent. I mean, that's not our intent. I mean, what we did was we found our daughter in Guatemala. What you were doing there, I had no idea, but that's where you were. And that's how we took it. And another weird thing that we experienced was we were told by people, man, you two, me and Kim, you are a blessing to this child. And it's like, what are you talking about? This child is a blessing to us. This is our child. Okay, that's fine. Maybe we're a blessing to each other. I'll go along with that, but it's not like we flew down to Guatemala. We didn't steal you and we didn't rescue you.
They didn't rob me or rescue me.
No, not at all. But being multicultural like you are, that's when we were doing the research. So Mesticas, really interesting. Yeah, kind of in a white European way. I'm Mestica. Well, another way of putting it, actually. I'm not Mestica. I'm a mutt. How about that? I'm a mutt. I'm the dog that you go to animal control and you pick up because it's not a purebred. I'm not purebred. I've got Indian in me on my mother's side, and that's a whole different conversation. Those things right there.
Descendants.
Yeah, and we carry those things genetically within us. It's and it's nice to know.
Mm-hmm.
And in your case, it's more than that because I'm not even sure what I'm trying to say. Because you come from a cultural that's more solid, whereas American, I mean, The majority are we're mutts. We're mutts.
Oh, you mean like they all kind of like the Guatemalans were already kind of their own, we'll say bubble or
Yeah.
something of their own people, and
Yes.
kind of here it was just a mix of kind of everyone.
Yeah, because now we travel cross country. Back years ago, before air travel was really common. You married the girl next door,
Mm-hmm.
or someone in your community, and so it's people that have the same culture, same values, things like that.
Suburbia.
Yeah. Whereas now, travel is so common, people end up marrying people from different regions or even from different parts of the world.
Mm-hmm.
Which is fine. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it.
Heck yeah.
Heck yeah. So what else? What else do they need to know about you and me?
I mean, it was a little rocky growing up. Like, I mean, maybe my middle school and a little bit of my pre-adult years were a little hard because I didn't really I didn't know who I was, and I didn't really know like what I came from.
Mm-hmm.
But like kind of taking the step from being like this teen in the premature age and like kind of just angsty already and
Mm-hmm.
rebellious, I jumped from there to where I'm at now, and now I'm kind of more curious about where it came from and why. Like, what did they? What was their purpose? What was Guatemalan people's purpose in our society? And yeah, I say our society because it's a part of a whole, because they Native Americans, any ancient descendant, they were primarily there before any of us, and even their ancestors and stuff were there before them.
Mm-hmm.
On the same land, or a land maybe a couple miles away or something, but it's kind of like a weird like domino effect of here, and then being it then and then us now, and it tumbling onto us like, well, this is kind of our step to be what is in the history books about our ancestors. Mm-hmm. And stuff. So it's kind of cool learning about what. Now I'm trying to learn about their language, because it's different than Native Americans. It's different from the people in Spain, even like even here.
Oh yeah,
English, like that's very interesting, and it's I think a lot of the issues that I had were mostly just self-identity. But other than that, I kind of just made my way back into it, and I adapted to the life that I have here now, and that it's not much of an effect on me as much as it was growing up. And I thought like I had some like weird separation anxiety from like my those where I came from, but I don't. I have separation anxiety because I didn't really know who I was.
Yeah,
and
that's a good point.
Yeah,
that's identity, and that one thing that I've learned is identity is existence.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just imagine that you didn't have that identity, then who or what would you be? Don't know. Well, we're where are we? We're almost at the 30-minute mark, so I want to. That's a long time, huh?
It's a long time.
Yeah. How do you feel about this?
Long story.
It's a long. Oh, and I got tons of long stories.
So do I.
Yeah, poor people. You guys suffer through my stories. Suffer through her stories. Well, you haven't suffered through hers yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. And that will possibly happen at some point.
Probably soon.
Yeah. Is there anything else that the people that are going to watch this need to know about you?
I mean, as of now, what I've gotten into recently is just trying to, I mean, everyone knows what's going on in the world right now. It's pretty sad and painful, not only for us, but for everyone else out there and people that I know personally and stuff. So, being a voice of a very interesting past, a very interesting where I, came from, my upbringing, whatever you want to call it. I kind of decided to spring upon a idea to bring to the community of Grand Junction with just art and music, just a expression of art and music to try and find our voices again and try and establish the points that we want to make on what's going on in the world right now, whether that's oppression, in any injustice, social injustice, and honestly, kind of just bringing us back to unity and human connection, and doing what doing right now, talking and conversating, and what I probably will go in my car later and just listen to music, and who knows what he's gonna do. Might meditate to some cool beats later. I don't know, but either way, we can kind of all connect on that same level of vibrational frequency that music and the visual arts can show us.
So what do you call that?
Well, I am calling it the universal music movement. It's a work in progress for sure. So
is there a place where people could maybe check it out?
So I messed up and made it private instead of public. So
you can change it if you want.
I tried to.
You did?
Yeah, and they're like, you can't change it from private to public now on Facebook. I don't know what Facebook's regulations are or whatever, but I have been posting it on my Facebook page, and the link is on there. So if you asked to join it, I will confirm.
Maybe you could post some things publicly and privately. So you can post it in the group, but you can also post it on your Facebook.
Oh, that makes sense. It's like kind of doing like the post in there and then on my... Yeah, that makes sense. So you guys could just follow my Facebook page. It's just Gabby Self. That's pretty generic.
And I'll try and figure out. I'll put that in the program notes. I guess I got to start saying things like that. I'll figure out how to do program notes, and I'll put those in there so that you'll have access to it.
I don't know what program notes are.
I'll show you.
Cool.
I think I know what they are. All right. Are we good?
Good.
All right. From Grand Junction, Colorado, everybody have a great day and stay well. Okay.